And Namo Buddhaya and Jai Bhim to all of you. And this is an honor and great pleasure to actually, to deliver this keynote. And I think this is also some kind of a accumulation of what we have been discussing for last so many months. In fact, the Sangha gathering has been taking place for almost 5 years now. And this is also in a way culmination of what we have been thinking, reflecting, and also trying to propose from time to time in terms of being very committed kind of Sangha members to the vision of Buddha, Kabir, Phule, Ambedkar. So it's also in a way tribute to that kind of a vision, critical vision that we have. And there is continuous discussion on that. So what I am going to focus on, or whatever I may be actually putting forward as some kind of a reflection, is basically culmination of what we have been discussing in a way. It is nothing more than some kind of a residue that we whatever I think that I have been able to comprehend from all these discussions, and particularly very insightful discussions that we had in our Sangha gathering. And so this is also, this has a background that whatever discussion now, contemporary discussion going on the issue of new education policy. So apart from the Navayana Buddhism and the kind of goal of establishing an egalitarian kind of a society that we have always envisioned, or all these radical social thinkers have imagined or envisaged, actually it is in that direction. And also the education is another domain which has always been a very important and crucial kind of area in which actually we need to reflect. And in that kind of a context, then I think when Dr. Bodhi has had this idea of the Buddhist University for 21st century, and that's a very important kind of a domain, I think, that the time of which has come to discuss and deliberate upon. So with this, I would like to whatever reflection that I have today, I have jotted down some points, and I thought I'll try to make sense of those points. Am I audible, or I need to increase my?
You are audible. You are audible.
Yeah. Okay. So the topic actually is framed for me by Bodhi, is the vision and mission of a Buddhist university theme of the as to what we are. The very key word that actually I thought in our my internet is becoming a little unstable. Sorry for that. So the keyword that we have in our conference theme itself is very suggestive, that we are trying to re-image and why actually we are reimaging. And when I try to actually find a dictionary meaning of reimaging, generally it is reinstalling or operating the kind of operating system that we have. Sometimes in a technological world that we are operating now, and the computers have become a very important part of our life. And so it refers to some kind of operative system. and it is a reinstalling of that system. It also implies formatting the hard disk or whatever that software that we have to store, or to preserve, cherish whatever principles which we form to take our life forward. So it is like, reformatting that and starting once again from the scratch. Now, why this kind of a reimaging is required? And I was just thinking over this because we have, the colonial construction of history, and in this colonial construction of history, we generally do not find uh, uh, Buddhist India figuring there. It is completely missing. So we only have three kind of Indias that we get: the Hindu India, the Muslim India, and the British India. So one uh, goes back to thinking that actually what happened to those 2,500 or 3,000 years history of right, starting from the shamanic kind of a tradition, and then the whole contribution by Buddha, and so those kind of issues actually began to emerge in our mind. That is one aspect. The second is also the kind of revivalism of Buddhism, actually, the attempts that have historically taken place by a number of individuals, and the kind of movement that we had. Even sometimes we find that academically some kind of reductionism that we witness, and we see that actually there is no any kind of substantial debate. It is often very rhetorical, and it doesn't in a way poses fundamental questions. So this is one more context when this kind of idea is been actually framed and brought in for discussion. So so we have several universities in India and abroad offering some program in Buddhist studies. And in India, if we see Delhi University, Nalanda University, University of Kolkata, and are prominent institutions or universities that are offering Buddhist studies. Across world, in some of the foreign universities also, we have these programs being run. And so that is one aspect. However, I personally feel that the present endeavor of reimaging of Buddhist University for 21st century is deeply embedded in Babasaheb Ambedkar's project of embracing Buddhism in 1956. And as we all know, that what kind of struggle that Dr. Ambedkar has waged against the Vedic Brahminism, and the kind of description of history that actually Babasaheb actually put forward for our thought, that actually it is a mortal conflict between the Brahminism and Buddhism. So it starts with that kind of statement, and advances is so many theories, as to how one can think of emancipation, reconstruction of the world, So that being a context, I personally feel that this, in a way, resonates his deepest kind of a personal and philosophical conviction when we think of the Buddhist University for the 21st century. And for Ambedkar, Buddhism, that is Sakyamuni's original teachings, or as Professor Ramesh Kamble calls it, a perspective on life, was a social philosophy based on morality and science, and it was not a religion. Now, having said this, this becomes a very fundamental kind of a context when we try to reimagine the Buddhist University. After his rational and radical reinterpretation of Buddhism, that is in the form of Buddha and his Dhamma, Ambedkar provided a universal ethical framework, and that has fundamental solutions for the reconstruction of the world. As we all know, Ambedkar followed the very indigenous critical tradition of Buddha, Kabir, and Phule. And this has been, been argued out by Professor Ramesh Kamble, Professor Yashdatta Aloni, many Buddhist scholars, in his quest for a truth and emancipation of the so-called lower caste. By the mid-1930s, particularly after his annihilation of caste in 1936, and as we know, this has been a completely radical departure in life of B.R. Ambedkar post 1935. And because he arrived at a conclusion that actually there is no reform possible within Hindu society. There is no possibility of completely removing this caste, and at least from the minds of the Hindus, and that is why caste of mind that it became very important issue for him. So Buddhism was by 1936, Buddhism was beginning to emerge as an inevitable choice as a social philosophy for the reconstruction of post-colonial Indian society. And I'm specifically, because Ambedkar was operating in a colonial context, I am saying that his vision was initially was maybe, I mean, I might be wrong in that, and there can be debate on that, that his vision was precisely more focused on colonial society, how one can have a very vibrant kind of a vision for the post-colonial kind of Indian society. He followed very closely the constructive revivalism of Buddhism in India, led by Ayodhya in Tamil Nadu, who established close ties with his neighboring Buddhist tradition in Sri Lanka. Ayodhya sought help from the great Buddhist monk Anagarika Dharmapala, who went on to establish the Sakya Buddhist Society in 1901. So Ayodhya's contribution in South that we know, he was a Buddhist scholar. Ayodhya and his followers believed that Parayas, the untouchables from Tamil Nadu, were the descendants of Buddha's Sakya clan. And I think Sakya Muni and Sakya clan, the Sakya Muni, I know in 1990s actually, many Tamil students in JNU used to discuss with Gail Ombet how they used to have this very local word being used as a Sakya Muni for Buddha. So now I remember that kind of discussion of Umanathan and many other students on the campus there with Gail Ombet. This was perhaps the first modern Indian Dalits' genuine attempt to resurrect and return to the ancient religion of Dalits in Indian subcontinent. And that has been actually recorded by Gail Ombet in her many books that she has written on Buddhism. The same inclination towards Buddhism as Dalits' ancient religion resonated in ideological positions of the leaders heading Adi movements in the first quarters of the 20th century. And if we look at the struggle by, particularly by Achyutanand, although Manguram has asserted an identity of Adi Dharmi, but and he could not go beyond Ravidas and Kabir. But Achyutanand actually very emphatically actually pointing out ours is the religion that comes to us from Buddha, and it is not a religion. Very specifically, he's mentioning that in his last address in 1927 or 28 in one of the conferences in Allahabad, and he was very critical of Gandhi and Gandhi's Congress. And another very tall leader, Bhagirathi Verma of the Adi Hindu movement, they all pointed out that who were in the forefront of the establishing their roots in Buddhist tradition. By 1940s, Ambedkar himself began to constructively reconstruct the Buddhist past. Because if we look at mainly revolution and counter-revolution, and we have been discussing it in Sangha gathering, he republished Lakshmi Narsu's The Essence of Buddhism, which gave modernistic reinterpretation or interpretation of Buddhism. emphasizing the social aspects of Buddha's teaching and denying completely the notion of karma and rebirth. This has been a core. Nobody except Ambedkar, I think, has been so engaged as a Buddhist scholar in this country, who outrightly denies the very notion of karma and rebirth. And we know how he actually, in his foreword, is critical about the Aryan truths and other kind of interpolation later on we had in Buddhist teachings. So Narsu's work later became a kind of premise for Ambedkar for his own interpretation in Buddha and his Dhamma. By 1950s, Ambedkar openly began propagating Buddhist teachings. In his article, The Buddha and the Future of His Religion, in the Journal of Mahabodhi Society, Ambedkar argued that Buddhism was a religion for the whole world. If the new world, which be it realized, is very different from the old, must have a religion, and the new world needs religion far more than the old world did, then it can only be the religion of Buddha. So this is this was very important in case of Ambedkar's very understanding and the kind of a envisioning that was happening in his mind. And Ambedkar attended World Buddhist conferences in Sri Lanka, Burma, and Nepal. And last 1 decade has been very busy for him because he stopped almost actually his fight with the Hindu minds was war. He began to construct altogether very different kind of a notion of a society and a reconstruction idea of the society. And he did not engage, I think, anymore with Nehru's and Gandhi's and anybody. And highlighting the need of Buddhism for the new world, Ambedkar emphasized the need for a religion with a morality and rationality as a core principle, particularly the world that suffered wars, economic distress, and poverty, worse kind of brutalities created by ideologies of fascism and Nazism, as we saw the brutal kind of atrocities through Holocaust and the nuclear destruction. So Ambedkar was aware the kind of a world that actually he was constructing as old world, and how one has to transcend and go into a new world, and what new world looks like. So Buddhism was also promoted by him as the only alternative to communism and socialism. So communism and Marxism was becoming the ideology, and how then Ambedkar in his last few months actually goes on to comparing the two ideologies, and how he end of the day actually says that actually how Buddhism has to be an alternative rather than Marxism or communism. Thus, one can very clearly see that Ambedkar's Buddhism emerged through his historical navigation, the source for both the challenges he confronted throughout his life and the vision he evolved for the new world was Buddhism. So for both actually the sources was, and I will even say it is not for Babasaheb Ambedkar alone, but any anti-caste radical, if we say, be it, it starts with Phule, and later on then how Ambedkar picks up that and he carries it to a logical kind of a conclusion. So that aspect of Ambedkar is very important. Thus one can, so in this broader reimagining kind of a context of Buddhist University, I would like to propose the following kind of rationale for reimagining the Buddhist University. First is that Ambedkar's Buddhism represents a critical tradition of Shramanas, Buddha's ancient past. Kabir, that is, Kabir was a important pillar in the Bhakti period, and he talked about the Nirguna and Saguna, those kind of notions of bhakti, and how the languages like Sanskrit becomes a kupajal. Kupajal means water in the no, well, and how other language traditions are the behta neer. No, those kind of this one. And why Pule, Raja Ram Mohan Rai and others have not formed organizations like Shudro Samaj or other Samaj, but he went on to envision a Satya Shodhaki Samaj, one which will be pursuing the truth. And Ayodhya Sakya Buddhist society, which actually tried to rejuvenate this Buddhist tradition. Lakshmi Narsu and Periyar's Justice Party and atheism. All these traditions were in a way, very critical tradition, drawing heavily from Buddha and Kabir, and they were trying to make sense of their reality. I'm sorry. Thus, the roots of his Buddhism are not in Western philosophy, as often argued by some Western scholars. They attribute it to Western kind of philosophy, and particularly American pragmatism, and Ambedkar being there in Columbia University and having influenced by John Dewey. But I often felt why Ambedkar publicly never acknowledged the fact that actually, he was his teacher, no doubt about it. John Dewey was his teacher. But no Western philosopher is Ambedkar's guru. All his three guru comes from the Indian tradition, Buddha, Kabir, and Phule. So his Columbia University experience and influence of John Dewey, and to reduce it to saying that actually Ambedkar's Buddhism is influenced by Western thought, it sounds little superficial in terms of understanding Buddha's Ambedkar's understanding of Buddhism and his quest for Buddhism for India. Second is, as we all know, with all his constraints, Ambedkar, as a chief architect of Indian Constitution, was able to provide a framework for ensuring justice to all its citizens. However, Ambedkar was deeply aware that constitutional framework and liberalism are not adequate to ensure liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. He was aware that the challenges in life cannot be handled by state machineries, state institutions alone, and hence it should go beyond liberalism, particularly in realm of value, the value of karuna and maitri. And Buddhism can only alternative to provide that. Constitution does not have potential to cannot handle cannot provide all the answers to the fundamental questions that actually the humanity is suffering from. So there is need to acknowledge the contribution of also the high caste converts to Buddhism in India, who were contemporary to Ambedkar, that is Rahul Sanskritayan, a Marxist Buddhist scholar who promoted study of Tibetan Buddhism across the world, Bhadanta Anand Kaushalyan and his disciple Jagdish Kashyap, who contributed significantly. And Kaushalyan specifically worked very hard to re-establish Buddhism and also promote Buddhist Sangha. He spent almost all his life post 1956 till his death 1998 at Nagpur, and he also established the training schools, and he promoted Ambedkar's Navayana Buddhism a big way, I think. Kashyap was Kaushalyan's disciple, was mainly engaged in reviving the Buddhist University at Nalanda, and he was engaged, but he focused more on meditation and other aspect of this one, and Kaushalyan in a way was not in agreement with him. Beside this, Sangha Rakshita played a crucial role in promoting international interest in Buddhism and made significant contribution in the post-conversion movement through his TBM. So all these contribution are also in a history are not that actually profoundly been comprehended and presented. That is one more aspect that why we need to highlight that. Another thing is that the upper caste Hindu intellectuals and mainly people like S. Radhakrishnan and A.K. Kuppaswamy, who were official spokesmen of Buddhism when India was celebrating 2500 Buddha birth anniversary. And that year, Babasaheb Ambedkar wanted to, present to the world his magnum opus, Buddha and his Dhamma. But they were not cooperating, and they were official spokesmen of Buddhism in India. They mainly were responsible for projecting Buddhism as a pure form of early Hinduism, and Buddha as the ninth incarnation of Vishnu. So this kind of propaganda has to be somewhere, very academically and very Buddhist way that has to be stopped. Universities are spaces for dialogue and particularly to taking dialogues forward, and that has been a Buddhist tradition. I think if we look at the very institution of Sangha, that has carried forward this legacy of Buddha. And if we reimagine the universities can be the spaces for these things, because it is only the dialogue which can enrich the dialectic way of thinking and change and other processes. So the Buddhist University can be an ideal place to train young committed intellectuals and social servants dedicated to the cause of reconstruction of the world. Babasaheb had got only 2 months, uh, 2 months as a Navayana Buddhist, and he hardly could get time to realize his vision in his own lifetime. He, it seems, has bought a land in Bangalore to construct a seminary and have proper training given to the Buddhist Sangha members, and he was also a little skeptical about the whole role of Buddhist Sangha, and that therefore he was very much actually concern about the fact that how Sangha has to be properly constructed and how it can become a backbone of Buddhist perspective on life. So broad objective or what we call mission or whatever is, I will just finish this and we can then move on to other speakers. I'm sorry if I have taken long time. So there's the broad objective, or you may call it, I mean, it can be converted into mission also, but I'm at this point in time calling them only the objectives, is to create an international university of learning in Buddhist studies with Asia by Buddhist studies within Asia by deliberating the various aspects of Buddhist schools of thoughts and their significance and relevance in contemporary society. To have international research collaboration with top universities in the world offering Buddhist studies with a vision of making the university the most viable and progressive resource place in India. For instance, collaborating with a Royal University in Bhutan, Columbia University in Sri Lanka, and there are many other universities outside Asia who have been actually studying on Buddhism. To deal with the contemporary issue of social exclusion experienced by many marginalized groups, be it Dalit, Adivasis, women, other minorities, we need to actually have focus on that from within the Buddhist kind of a framework. They often exhibit inherent inequality and discrimination in South Asia. And we often get to hear voices from Nepal, Sri Lanka. We call Sri Lanka as Buddhist study, but we know what is the situation of the Jaffna region, how Dalit from Tamil region have gone there, and how what kind of a worse practices of untouchability are practiced being there, and how the Sri Lankan society also, although proclaim itself to be a very Buddhist kind of a society, they also have a hierarchy like caste. So this program is envisioned as a also a part of the since there has been a intense debate on new education policy in India. So it is also in a way an attempt to think in that direction and attract some international students to learn about the philosophies and tradition of India, in which I think the Buddhist tradition is the very enriching kind of a tradition. So with I mean, some things can also be discussed while if we have some questions. So I think I can stop here. And I would also like to mention one more point, that actually I have gone through the syllabuses of Buddhist studies being offered by Kolkata University, Nalanda, and other places. I mean, I was horrified the kind of coursework that they have. And second point is also that most of the places, I'm very sorry to say this, but don't take me otherwise, uh, don't mistake me. Uh, the current tradition in Maharashtra, particularly propagating Buddhism, many of our Buddhist scholars think that once they are grounded into Pali, they have got all their hands on the Buddhist canon, and they are the Buddhist scholars. So this was also resonating in my discussion with Professor Aloni. He will also focus on this. So mere learning of Pali will cannot be actually, if we need to reconnect with the Buddhist world, and it was actually this part of the world of Buddha, and during Buddha's period was well connected organically with the other rest of the world in terms of creating the ideology, creating the knowledge frameworks for emancipation of the human beings. And if we want to resurrect that kind of a tradition, the idea of the reimaging the Buddhist university is the time idea whose time has come. And I think I will stop here. Thank you so much for your patience listening. Namo Buddhaya and Jai Guru.